Pip pip, good day to you all. Musto0063 here, about to return to the motherland. So that can only mean that I'm taking on the master of the mace ball, Nightman. And the level seems to take place inside a castle, and I suppose knights and castles are somewhat synonymous with England, making it seem like an obvious enough choice for a stage location. But anyway, this little guy is called Brown. No really, Brown. He hides in, let's call it armour, why not, and only pokes his head out when you hit said armour. You then need to shoot him in the head in order to kill him. We now have a ceiling crusher segment, and this one has spikes on it, so don't jump when the ceiling's low. There are some obvious looking places for Mega Man to hide in when the ceiling is at its lowest, and you'll want to make sure you can reach these before getting shish kebabbed. But as you can see, there are some enemies along the way, so it's probably best not to slide through, especially as you can easily still get to safety by simply walking and shooting. This is a Tatabo, or Tatabo, I don't know what the pronunciation is, but it's only weak when it drops its shield, so pick your time to attack and watch out for both its arcing and horizontal pellet shots. That was a ridiculously placed Skullwalker. Just shoot it through the wall and you're done. We also get introduced to these rotating wheels here. Don't worry, they don't hurl Mega Man off them at a great speed, but you obviously need to be mindful that you can't just stand still on them for any lengthy period of time. And that brings us to the annoying Brown room. The arcing pellet shots these things fire are much more annoying than you, or indeed I, might think from looking at them, so be on guard. A good tip for this room is to let them shoot at least once before jumping from ledge to ledge. Otherwise they have a nasty tendency of perfectly timing their shots to hit you, given that you won't be able to alter your jump trajectory easily without landing in the spike pit. And as you may have seen, for some reason as well, the hit detection point on the Brown always seems to be a little off. I would swear that I'm aiming for the face, but the shots don't quite register, and that can be a little frustrating. I thought I told you before, Eddie, no more weapon energy. But we find ourselves outside again, the sky having changed from red to blue in that minute and a half, and are confronted by these brain breaks. Basically what you want to do is unload all your shots as quickly as possible. When you hit them once, you knock their glasses off, and they then run around manically and become very difficult to avoid. So, last screen, sort of ish, and it's a bouncy room. Touch either the floor or the ceiling and you get thrusted upwards or downwards. I recommend planning ahead for where you want to move, and if you need to, you can stay on the same X coordinate in certain sections while waiting for the enemies to get out of the way. So Nightman is one of those Robot Masters with a real and a fake version. The fake version is to the right. To get to the real version, we have to smash through this block down here with the Rush power adapter. So what you do is you charge up the left meter, and Mega Man's punch is able to destroy breakable blocks. We need to break another couple here, but the last one in particular requires some good timing, because there is a tiny delay to Mega Man's movements when he completes his punch, and we obviously have a floor-bound enemy just waiting to run into us if Mega Man isn't quick enough. And I don't know if you caught that little delay there, but that wasn't me taking liberties, that is an in-game thing. Now, Nightman is one of those Robot Masters who doesn't seem to have a lot of attacks, but underestimate him at your peril. His only one really is to fling his mace ball at you, and this goes as far as Mega Man was standing, so it's best to position yourself at least a little away from the corner so you can jump backwards and keep out of its reach. You could also obviously jump over it, but it does retract, so you need to be mindful of that, albeit much slower than when it's first flung at you. As you can see here, again with a Mega Man 6 Robot Master, a huge problem occurs when Knight walks along the floor and corners you, leaving you no room to avoid his mace ball. I really don't quite know what to do if Knight decides to charge at you like this, since he's very difficult to jump over given the position of his shield and his right arm. Now when he's not cornering you, Knight also likes to jump around the room, in case you haven't noticed, so try to keep an eye on his trajectory and plan for where he's going to land. If it looks like he might corner you, try to walk or slide under him. I guess the last thing worth mentioning is that, not unsurprisingly, but rather annoyingly, Nightman has a shield, so you can't just attack him whenever you want. The only times you can really damage him are when he's flinging his mace ball at you, or, and you need to time this really well, just when he's landing from a jump. Now, I don't quite know what happened there. That last time I got hit, if you go back and look at it, Mega Man just seems to cancel out of his slide. I'm not even 100% sure what, if anything, I pressed to make that happen, but it was irritating nonetheless, albeit not ruining a potential perfect run. I get Night Crush, a maceable weapon that homes in on enemies and is very useful, much more so than the demonstration here appears to show. I also get the Beat A parts for defeating the real Nightman. So let's not drag out the couldn't I perfect run question. This one turned out to be rather simple. Okay, so like I said, this one turned out to be pretty straightforward. And I think I deserve to have a stage turn out that way. The first 5, while none of them were exceptionally difficult, were certainly not straightforward. Most of the enemies in the stage are pretty easy to deal with. Now, there were some clumsy spots, and I'll mention them when I reach those points, but I generally never feel like there are any areas in the stage that require you to really be on your guard, or have a swarm of enemies come at you that you need to deal with. Everything is pretty mellow. Screens like this one, for instance, and certainly the next one, and the one after that even, kind of feel more like filler than anything that's ever going to trip me up. I mean, look at that. If you ever got to that, you need to stop playing the game right now. So finally we do come to a screen that messed up an attempt. And it was the second brown that got me. So here we go. I didn't pause there to let that one pellet shot pass, and severely paid for my impatience. Well, I say impatience, more rather me not appreciating what was going to happen. And here's where a second mess up occurred. I cannot stress enough, do not dawdle when attacking the brain breaks. Kill them quickly, or you will be sorry. Okay, now how did that shot miss? Either way, this is another nothing screen. I suppose the bouncy screen might take a little getting used to, but since I was already used to it, I knew how best to manoeuvre through, and I never ended up jumping or landing anywhere I shouldn't have done. Of course, for the real boss fight, we have to get out Power Mega Man and break this block. Rapido Punch! And regrettably, there was a third outtake here because I wasn't quick enough breaking the last block and crossing the spike pit before the enemy caught up to me. I wasn't expecting the delay after breaking the block and being able to move. And even this time around, that looked way closer than it needed to be, but again, not my fault. Now, I actually don't have a lot else to say about the fight with Nightman. I covered all I really wanted to in the Let's Play version, thanks to it being a somewhat lengthy fight because of Knight's shield limiting your opportunities to hit him. I had a reasonably lucky first fight and didn't suffer any outtakes on him. So probably worth repeating that, to be honest, the only thing he does which is annoying is to walk along the floor. Now, don't get me wrong, when he did it during this fight, I was rather fortunate that the next thing he did was almost always to jump, thus giving me the chance to get on the other side of him and give myself that extra room. Sometimes as well, I seem to be having trouble predicting where he was going to land, meaning that some occasions when I definitely should have stood under him, I didn't, leaving myself trapped. But once more, he was nice enough to immediately jump again and not corner me. So I got somewhat lucky, but I ain't about to complain. And with that, it's good night from him. About time I had an easy Mega Man 6 stage. I know I didn't take on Robot Masters according to a strict perceived difficulty order or anything, but I was starting to think that these were all going to turn out awkward. Thankfully though, this was a stage that only took 10 minutes to complete, and with only suffering 3 outtakes, all of which I talked about during the Perfect Run. So as mentioned, this is one of the easiest stages I can think of to get through unscathed. There aren't a lot of enemies around, and those that are don't pose too much of a threat. The brown room, where you do need to look before you leap, is maybe the only one I would even give pause for thought on. That's not to say that I didn't get caught out by other things when I first came to them while attempting to perfect run the level, but now that I'm familiar with those areas, I wouldn't expect to come a cropper on them anymore. I'd still be disappointed to mess up on the brown room, but not as much. As for Nightman, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Mega Man 6 Robot Masters tend to only be made difficult when they corner you. Nightman is the third in a row who can corner you without you being able to do much about it. And unfortunately, he won't be the last in Mega Man 6. Only 3 outtakes and 10 minutes to get the perfect run. That equals one very happy Musto. And probably none too unsurprising, Nightman becomes the 8th member of the 1 out of 10 club, joining Heat, Top, Magnet, Hyperstorm H, Toad, Gravity and Gyro. Possibly a little bit of a false rating, because I say the fight with Knight is harder than any of the ones with the 7 Robot Masters I've just mentioned. Knight is unpredictable and can corner you. The other 7 all either have pattern-based strategies or have extremely easy to avoid attacks. But ultimately, I can't argue with the stats, and based on those, there's simply no way I can justify any higher a rating. So that's all for this time. Tune in next time to find out if I'll be turning Japanese. Cheerio.